Hello, everyone. So, I want to talk about the online safety bill in England and about pretty much all of a sudden every government, it's very coincidentally, it's not organised at all, and of course, it's not coordinating it. That every government we've seen in Australia now, and other governments are talking about it too, that you need ID to access Twitter, to access social media, and Spotify in the UK too. Would you believe Spotify for music? Apparently, they want your ID to make sure you're 18. But we all know the real reason why. And I get into the specifics now in a second on different stuff. But we all know the reason why. Because they want to find out if somebody's anonymous and they're committing thought crime. And that's the reason why in the UK. Because we see the UK is literally going 1984, to be totally honest. Talking about banning VPNs, etc., etc. Russia and China and Kazakhstan and stuff, dictatorships. Not free and open democracies. Don't ban VPNs and stuff like that. So what's going on in the UK? What's going on in Australia? With the banning of YouTube, take for example, for under 16s, I think it is, maybe it's 18s, but it seems to be all coordinated. But as I say, you shouldn't really need an ID to access YouTube or Twitter, take for example, because technically Twitter too, and whatever you want to call it, X, and the same with Facebook. It's pretty much a public platform. But it's a public space, pretty much in a way too. It's a public, as many people as it's a public square to air your grievances with the government or whatever, or even have your opinion on the big subjects. And I suppose it is right, because if you don't protest in person on the street, you should be able to have your opinion online on the covered subjects or whatever the story may be, whatever your opinion is, of course, too, as long as the government approves. It seems to be the modern situation. But the other thing too, what I just mentioned, just before I go on, the UK have set up a police, like a section of the police force over there to pretty much go around looking for people that committing thought crime. We can't have that, so they're going to designate a few hundred officers to go around the country to arrest people for thought crime, which is a great thing. I'm sure you would win. The Western world is great. And at the same time too, we give out, but Russia and other countries in the UK goes and arrest their own citizens for thought crime. It's quite insane. The Western world, Europe is the same nearly at this stage. They nearly would do it if they got away with it, but they can't do it yet, unfortunately, because the people won't let them, and the people are giving out fuck about this government. But of course, it goes without saying, for porn websites and gambling websites, to be told, in my opinion, I think everybody would agree, to protect children, of course, there probably should be, for porn websites and stuff, that you have to present your ID or some kind of identification to make sure you're 18 to access it. If not, just ban it altogether, get rid of it off the internet, but it'd be impossible to do. The same with gambling websites. I don't mind that. But for only social media use going on to Spotify, as I say, just even listen to music, you shouldn't have to go and show your ID. Because even on YouTube, take for example here, there's videos that are age restricted on YouTube due to violence or whatever the story may be. And you often come across it. Oftentimes I watch police body cams from the UK, US and UK. And some of them are violence, predict violence and stuff like that. And obviously YouTube want to see your ID and stuff like that. So why would you give Google or YouTube or any big tech platforms your ID? Like the Irish state knows who I am, type for example. The Irish government knows every one of those citizens. It's not like we're anonymous citizens. They can easily just look up our name, a PPS number, and find out who we are, where we live, and X, Y, and Z. It's just the modern world now. That's able to happen. But what's happening now is, if you commit thought crime, because a lot of people use anonymous accounts, etc., etc., that's pretty much what they're trying to do here. So if you're committing thought crime behind the keyboard, they can lock you up for it, which I don't agree with. Because at the end of the day, you're entitled to your opinion. Of course, as long as you're not going around saying you're going to do this or go do that, something violent, etc. That's obviously a crime. You can't just go and incite something. That goes without saying. I'm sure you would agree. But for this kind of carry on that's happening in the Western world, we have to get over ourselves. What I mean by that is we have to cop onto ourselves a bit. Because this is supposed to be the land, really pretty much the beacon of freedom and democracy. Europe, the European, the Western democracy. We're supposed to be better than the rest of the world. We should be better than the rest of the world. We should be leading the world, as Europe, as North America, on the guidance of democracy and the guidance of freedom, and then democracy and freedom. But unfortunately, we're becoming more like Russia and Kazakhstan and China, of course. We want to control what people think and what they do and how to do it. And when the government tells them they can speak, that's not democracy, that's not freedom, that's not what the Irish people fought for 800 years for, to be rid of the British. We didn't fight to be told what to do and how to do it by our own government, by our own people. to be told what to do and how to do it, and what to say and what not to say. We can't accept that, and no nation should accept it for some entity over in Davos to tell us what to do and how to do it and when to do it. But of course, these online safety bills, the whole definition of it's to protect children. But at the same time too, we see many different things to do with schools, etc., pushing narratives into school, take for example, shoving it down our children's throats, and the state doesn't be like, oh, we need to protect our children here. No, there's not a word, not a peep. Take for example, there's dangerous people walking around with knives in this country in Ireland, and there's no word about protecting children. Take for example, recently enough, a man who went around with a knife stabbing children outside a primary school was unheard of 20 years ago that somebody would do such a thing, but it did happen in Dublin. It was unheard of 20 years ago that could have happened. Somebody could go randomly and stab children outside that primary school. And it just goes to show you how much the West has fallen when that kind of stuff is happening. Because it was unheard of 20 years ago that could have happened. That somebody would be so evil to attack innocent children. But as I say, that's the Western world now. But there was no such thing as we need to try and cut down on immigration. There's no such thing as we need to, make sure the dangerous people don't get out of prison and they're not a threat to society. As we see at the moment, the sex offenders, dangerous individuals with knives and stuff, were able to get out of prison in a few months for crimes. Even murderers and stuff are let out of prison early in good behaviour to walk the streets, to take somebody else's life. And then we'll say we want to protect children and police the internet, instead of worrying about somebody literally going around with knives, killing people, guns, God forbid. But what I'm trying to say, we should worry about that, and then maybe worry about the internet after that, because we seem to have our priorities up our holes, to be, excuse my language, but it's simply the truth. But of course, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to say the internet's all safe and sound and everything's Gandhi. It's not. Unfortunately, it's not. And nothing's ever perfect. But I suppose there's a good side to the internet and a bad side. But at the same time, I don't think it's the place of the government, of any government, to tell a parent or children what to do and how to do it. I think it's up to the parents at the end of the day. If you don't think it's safe for your children to be on YouTube, take for example, fair enough. Because again, until you're 18, it's your own business. After 18, it's your own business what you do, pretty much. But until you're 18, again, the parents and guardians should have the final say. Because I think this thing too of the government wanting to tell people what to do and how to do it, it's the same with children now. They want to tell the parents how to raise their children nowadays. They want to take God out of it, of course. They want to do that. They don't want the Catholic way, where many people like myself were brought up with tradition, was brought up with the faith of God and put the fear of God into us if we commit crime and stuff like that. And so rightly so, because you're led in the straight path. What I mean by that is you never commit crime because you're terrified of what will come when your day comes. And it's suppose in the way that kind of keeps you on the straight now. That's what I mean to say. Nowadays, it's kind of whatever goes, unfortunately. But yeah, it is a sad day for the West when we have these kind of bills. And as I say, in the UK, it's 1984, quite literally. George Oswald would be very proud, I'm sure. He wouldn't be very horrified, and he'd be probably proud that his prediction came true very quickly. But we have, as I say, we have to fight against this, and so eventually they will. The Online Safety Commission here on Commission Oman is fucking people over here. Excuse my language, but that's what's happening. The European Union eventually will do the same. And it's all to do with the last thing I say. It's all to do with digital IDs, of course. They want you not to have a physical ID anymore. It's a digital. It'd be like the credit system in China, that you get certain amount of credits for being a good boy, and you're giving credit to the government when you're pretty much being a government lynch, if that makes any sense. Saying, oh, Simon Harris is great, you get 5 points and stuff like that, and you can access YouTube for an hour or something like that, and then approve pre-government content and stuff like that. That's literally what they're going for at this stage. But anyway, let me know what you take. It is a threat to the Western world. It's a threat to the Western democracies. Because it's all in the name of protecting children. And as I say, it's nothing further than the truth. But as I say at the beginning, as I said, we're in the middle of something, not even the beginning, for porn websites and for gambling websites and stuff, I think everybody would agree that you probably should have some identification to go on to them, first of all, to protect children. Because that's actually protecting children, stopping them from accessing porn or gambling, take for example, to get addicted to gambling. But at the same time too, for literally going and accessing Spotify, you need ID and stuff, you need to be 18. It's quite insane. But It's the same for YouTube too, but I do think at the end of the day it's up to the parents. I don't think the government should have a role in it. But that's just my view. So let me know what you think. Subscribe for more, and bye.